we're going to begin offering some open classes. Now, I want to explain what these open classes look like in a thumbnail sketch. And again, we'll be sharing more of this in the weeks to come. Open classes will look like this. Open classes, one, will go across the span of the congregation. So when I say open, they'd be open for students, middle school, high school, up to all through senior adults. Open classes. These classes would address certain critical areas of doctrine or teaching or practical life things that we think are necessary for a healthy church, but they're hard to implement in other times and places. And we want to try to put them in those places where the most people could most easily access them. And these open classes would be for that purpose. Open classes would also allow people to be exposed to other good teachers, people in the congregation that you've never heard teach. For instance, we just recently nominated and elected 2 new elders. Well, one of the criteria for elders is that they be able to teach. Well, you had to take our word for that, or at least the word of people who've been in their life groups, because most of you would never have heard the teaching of our 2 newest elders. Well, in these open classes, you have an opportunity to hear people teach. Also would allow us an opportunity to encourage new teachers to grow and to develop. Let me tell you what this looks like, just sort of in practical terms. Sometimes if we're not careful, our church life can look a little bit like this. Imagine going into a neighborhood that's gated. All those people live in that same neighborhood. They pass through the same gate. If you ask them where they live, they'll give you the same name of that neighborhood. But when you go into that neighborhood is full of cul-de-sacs. And people tend to stay in those cul-de-sacs. And so they know the people that are right there around them, the 2, 3, 4 houses around them, but they may not know the people on the other side of the main street or the other side or the other cul-de-sac. Sometimes if we're not careful, our church life can become like that, like a gated community. It's Calvary, but lots of cul-de-sacs. And those cul-de-sacs can become life groups or small groups. And people can stay in those for years and years and years and never really know even the names of other people that are in their own neighborhood, their own church, their own community. And even if they do know them, sometimes their knowledge of them can be very superficial. May not know anything about them, their lives, their situations, their needs, their struggles, anything. And so we begin to think, what could we do that could encourage and facilitate, sort of, for lack of a better term, the cross-pollination of our congregation? Younger and older integrating, people getting to know one another, people meeting each other, people talking to one another, some natural opportunities for discipling to develop across those lines. I remember several months ago, we had one of those Sunday night prayer gatherings, and I remember sitting with some folks. I remember sitting with the Grays. And are they in here, the Grays? Yeah. I remember Cecilia and I were sitting across from them, and they're in my life group, and I'm not typically there because I'm doing other things on Sunday mornings during that slot, but Cecilia's there, and just in those few minutes of time, we're praying for one another and learn more about them and their needs than I would have known in a year just sitting in a lecture with them, sitting with them in front of me or my back to them. That sort of integration of knowing and growing as a people, we think is just so critical. We want to facilitate those opportunities. And so to raise that level of community, we think these open classes can help us do that, but also it helps us raise the level of teaching. So often on staff level and sometimes in elders meetings, we talk about things we would love for our people to know. Things that churches and congregations in generations past knew well and handled well. Things like doctrine and theology, things like history, or sometimes specific things, particular issues, family life issues or marriage or whatever it may be. So how can we facilitate those? So here's what we're looking at beginning these open classes. These will be divided into some major tracks. Theological tracks, Bible tracks, practical life application tracks. We're going to begin with a very small sample size in March with these open classes. Now, these open classes they'll look like this. We'll gather, as we have for these last 4 Sundays, in here for anyone who's coming to an open class. We'll gather in here, we'll give a welcome and introduction. We'll talk about what the classes are that are being offered today, and then all the people that are in open classes will use the classrooms beneath us in this space, the sanctuary beneath us. The classes will be beginning in March, will be meaningful membership. And so if you guys haven't picked up on this yet, you were our first round of meaningful membership. There'll be a slightly condensed version of these last 4 classes, but what you have heard, what we believe, why a church, what we commit to together, and what our life is together, that forms the basis of our brand new membership portal. So you can have the confidence in knowing, as a church member, anyone who comes and joins us is we going through those 4 class portals. And we're going to be offering that throughout the year in Sunday morning blocks, 4 classes, and a couple of times a year in some intensives. So if someone misses them, can't be here a couple Sundays, they can do an intensive. We'll be offering it all Sunday afternoon. And so, well, I missed number 2 and 3. We'll come between 2 and 4, because from 1 to 2, we'll be doing number 1, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5 before our Sunday evening service. So meaningful membership will be one. We'll also be beginning in March with an Old Testament overview. Old Testament overview, of course, will not be verse by verse through every book, but it will be an introduction over a period of weeks of every book of the Old Testament. So if you, off the top of your head, don't really know what Ezekiel is about or what Amos was dealing with, then you'll get a sense of those things as an overview and a better grasp of all those things together. We'll also be beginning systematic theology. Systematic theology is the means by which we understand all these texts together. What are the big theological elements that tie Scripture together? So we'll be doing systematic theology. And then our 4th class will be one called Christianity Explained. Christianity Explained has a 2-pronged purpose. So hear me out on this. One, if someone is a brand new Christian or maybe not yet a Christian, Christianity Explained is a 6-week course that just explains the basics of our faith. It goes through the Gospel of Mark, uses that as the framework. What does it mean to be a Christian? And so it's great for that new believer or that not yet a believer that you may be inviting and you want to come and sit with them. Also, some of you are trying to share the good news with somebody, a neighbor, a coworker, maybe a son or a daughter, and you're saying, I need some tools, I need some help in how I might. What should I share with them? What should I tell them? You come to Christianity Explained, and you'll be well equipped. And then the second part of Christianity Explained, after that 6-week course, will be how to study your Bible. So for those people, again, that just, I need the tools to self-feed. I know one of my commitments is supposed to be read my Bible every day. What do I do with it when I read it? How do I read it? So we're going to offer those 4, meaningful membership, Old Testament overview, systematic theology, Christianity Explained. And so your first question might be, well, how does this relate to my life group? Well, this is where, and this is sort of a new word in the Calvary vernacular in 2023, you're going to have to make some choices. You may decide as a life group as a whole, it would be really beneficial for us as an entire life group to come for a period of time, and let's do that Old Testament overview. I think that would be great for us. The format would still allow you to gather as a group. Again, we're going to do what we're doing. We'll finish by 9:30. You can still have some prayer time together. You can still meet and discuss needs, talk about when your next fellowship is going to be, see how everyone's doing, things like that. You could come together as a life group. Some of you might decide, this season of my life, I really need that. Maybe at some point you'll see we're offering one on marriage or on parenting. Say, I need that. And you could come individually. You can still remain connected to your life group in other ways. Some of the life groups may decide that it works best for us to move our life group meeting times to Wednesday nights. We have childcare, we have classroom space, we have all the things available to you. You might say, to take advantage of these open classes, we also want to go here. You have to decide. If there are guests that come to Calvary, we're going to encourage them to start here. Start here in the open classes. Start here, meet some people across the board. Now, what I want to encourage you to consider, though, and I'm sure there are a lot of questions that will come from what I've shared, I want to encourage you with the potential of getting outside of your cul-de-sac, even just for a season. Maybe you decide that for 1 quarter, we're going to do an open class, and we're going to meet new people. We're going to meet some of the students that are here. We're going to meet some of the seniors that are here. We're going to meet some people we've never met that are new to the church here. We're going to do open class. Then we'll return to our group. Or maybe you'll pick out some of those classes, but you'll have those choices. We're also looking at offering some of those same opportunities in the fall on Wednesday nights. And so some core classes, some of these open classes that teach some of these core issues will be available to us on Wednesday nights as well. But we're starting with those 4.